Good afternoon and welcome back to Legal Task. Today we will be talking about the FATF guidance on virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. And while the FATF is not a governmental agency, its membership is comprised of 39 countries, and it has played an active role in proposing a regulatory framework for virtual assets. In this brief, we will explore what changes the revised FATF standards brought for virtual asset service providers, so-called VASP. While the FATF guidance is non-binding, failure to adopt its framework could have adverse diplomatic, financial and other negative consequences. Therefore, over 200 countries globally now would have to handle decentralized finance, NFTs and virtual assets in the way precisely recommended by the FATF. It's not a mistake to say that the FATF is having a direct and significant influence over decentralized finance and NFTs development worldwide, being able to stifle or accelerate the pace of innovation. And although lack of consistency in the standardization of financial innovations, especially during the early stages of their development, is first of all grounded in complexity of the market, and the chosen by the private stakeholders innovation strategies often resulted in creating negative effects, such as creating socially useless innovations. Intergovernmental approaches to combat money laundering can also have very adverse impact on the market. In June 2019, the FATF finalized amendments to its global standards in relation to anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing requirements applicable to virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. Further, the FATF has agreed to undertake a 12-month review to measure the implementation of the revised standards by jurisdictions and the private sector, as well as monitoring for any changes in the typologies, risks and the market structure of the virtual asset sector. The FATF released the findings of that review in July 2020, and more recently in October 2021 has released the new guidance on virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. The new guidance supersedes the previous 2019 guidance and is focused on 6 key areas initially promoted as part of implementation of risk-based approach to virtual assets and VASPs in the draft guidance. The first one of the key areas is closing definitional gaps of virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. Secondly, it regulates stablecoins, addressing various risks stablecoins pose. Thirdly, risks and tools available to countries to address the money laundering and terrorist financing rules for peer-to-peer transactions are now discussed. These transactions do not involve any obliged entities under the current FATF regulations. What is more, VASP licensing and registration updates are discussed. The fifth point would be travel rule implementation guidance, and the sixth, principles of information sharing and cooperation amongst VASP supervisors. What seems important is that the guidance also devotes substantial attention to discussing regulation for decentralized finance and non-fungible tokens. We will discuss these topics in more detail in part 2. Subscribe to Dukascoin TV and watch Legal Task. We'll keep you updated.